No criminal charges will be handed out from this case unless anyone's held in contempt or if anyone commits acts of perjury. Does everyone understand that?
Understood.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. I ask that you keep your phones in your pockets.
Game I did
Don't
not
pass
know.
notes unless it's an attorney trying to speak with their client through the notes, so they don't speak over the court. Does everyone understand that?
Understood.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, boss,
All right.
I know.
So
Right?
the statement of claim on June 15th, 2019, my client, Mr. Swoleroid, was mercilessly gunned down by Senior Deputy Kurt Leonard during a foot pursuit. Mr. Swoleroid was unarmed and pleading for his life as Leonard repeatedly fired shots into my client's back as Officer Svensson was demanding him to stop running. My client was given no chance to surrender peacefully and was instead brutally shot down and suffered extensive injuries that required him to be placed into ICU by doctors. Mr. Swoleroid claims Leonard used excessive force and seeks compensation for the act of excessive force. In the relief, the plaintiff is seeking $100,000 in punitive damages, and then there was another subsection that said more relief to be determined. I looked throughout the court docket. I did not see any more relief being asked for. The representative, Mr. Braun, you are not representing. Who is representing Mr. Swoleroid?
That would be Lawrence Splainer, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir. And Mr. Shaw will be representing the defendant. Are both sides prepared to give their opening?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes,
All
Your
right.
Honor.
The plaintiff, you may start with your opening, sir.
Yes, Your Honor. All right, so to begin this opening statement, there is a tremendous amount of respect that is due to the officers of the law in the state of San Andreas. They have such a sense of drive and dedication to duty that they would put themselves in harm's way. They would put their lives on the line to enforce the laws of the land. And as such, they take their oath of honor and are granted authorities within their station. They are explicitly trained on how to uphold the law, how to conduct themselves professionally, how to execute their authority gracefully, with distinction, and with respect to the civil rights of the citizens of the United States that they are sworn to protect. We are gathered here today to hear a violation of these civil rights. Within the Fourth Amendment, we as Americans are guaranteed security in our persons against unreasonable search and seizure. On June 15th, 2019, Curtis Swoleroid's Fourth Amendment rights were breached by Deputy Kurt Leonard. As a deputy of the law, sworn and trained to his duties, he opened fire on a man pleading and fleeing for his life, with no weapon in his hand to authorize the escalation to lethal force. Mr. Swoleroid seeks $100,000 in punitive damages as a tangible reminder to the Blaine County Sheriff's Office that they are held to a standard when executing their authority, and deviations from those standards in execution of said authority that violate the rights of the citizens of the United States will be brought to a court of law and the appropriate parties held liable for their actions. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Shaw, your opening.
Your Honor, I'd like to, as I normally do, start off by thanking you for taking the time out of your day to be here. We're here today because, as stated, on June 15th, Curtis Swoleroid was acting negligently and was actively putting himself and others in harm's way. Kurt Leonard saw Curtis Swoleroid willfully put the lives of others in immediate danger as he launched the vehicle he was in from upper to lower pillbox, almost striking an individual. And at this point, Leonard had a good faith belief that Curtis posed a significant threat of death or serious physical injury to others as he acted accordingly. He acted accordingly, rather. Unfortunately, Mr. Swoleroid is taking this opportunity in an attempt to get a nice payout for my client. Mr. Swoleroid's negligence, willful intent, and disregard for not only his safety, but the safety of others means that he himself is at fault in this situation. And as such, we're requesting that Mr. Swoleroid be awarded no damages. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Now, I did see one piece of evidence listed. It was the medical report for Mr. Swoleroid from Dr. Ducksworth. We will refer to that if it is brought up during the court case. All right. Is the plaintiff
yes, Your Honor.
prepared to call their first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff would like to summon Officer Owen Svensson to the stand.
All right,
Yes.
Officer Svensson.
Yep.
And I'll go ahead and swear you in once you've taken your place, sir. Will you please raise your left hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give, sir, is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalties of perjury, so help you Coyle?
I do.
All right. I will remind you now, sir, that you are now sworn in. You may proceed with your first line of questioning for this witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Owen Svensson, how are you doing today?
I'm well.
Good. That's fantastic to hear. On the events of June 15th, 2019, after Mr. Swoleroid exited the vehicle, what happened?
You can be more specific. You mean when he ran across the freeway?
Yes. After he exited the vehicle, what events immediately followed after Mr. Swoleroid exited the vehicle?
He ran west across the freeway, and I exited my vehicle and began to chase him.
Understood. And pursuant of that chase, if I assume correctly, that's called a foot bail. Where did Mr. Swoleroid go?
He ran west over the Los Santos freeway across the southbound lanes of traffic and ran underneath Del Perro freeway in a, I don't know how to describe it, a vacant area with dirt and bushes, shrubs.
Understood. While Mr. Swoleroid was fleeing on foot, did you see anything in his hands?
No, I did not.
What level of force were you using while chasing Mr. Swoleroid?
Initially, I had a pistol because shots were fired at the vehicle. I believe I switched to a taser when I didn't see anything in his hands.
So, if I may ask, Officer Svensson, what was your motivation for switching to the taser?
I didn't see anything in his hands. He appeared to be unarmed and fleeing.
Understood. Did Mr. Swoleroid appear to reach for anything in his pockets while fleeing?
No, he did not.
During the foot bail, at what point in time did Deputy Kurt Leonard open fire on Mr. Swoleroid?
Wasn't wearing a watch. Couldn't tell you exactly.
Understood. So this may be after you were already pursuing Mr. Swoleroid. Kurt Leonard joined the chase of the foot bail and then began to open fire.
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
Sustained. Rephrase the question, sir.
Understood, Your Honor. During the foot bail, Deputy Kurt Leonard opened fire on Mr. Swoleroid.
Yes.
When Deputy Kurt Leonard opened fire on Mr. Swoleroid, did you say anything? Did you attempt to communicate with Deputy Kurt Leonard?
At one point, I told him to stop firing. He didn't have anything in his hands.
After you issued the ceasefire to Deputy Kurt Leonard, what happened?
You look at Dick, Chad.
One more bullet was fired, at least.
Understood. Plaintiff has no additional questions for this witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Shaw, your witness.
Absolutely. Mr. Svensson, how are you?
I'm still well.
It's good to hear. Now, in regards to the information available to you, just to verify, it was just that he was fleeing, correct?
I was also, I saw Senior Deputy Rogers fire an assault rifle at his vehicle.
And do you know why shots were fired?
Couldn't tell you 100%.
Objection, scope.
Your Honor, Mr.
Yes.
Svensson brought up the fact that shots were fired prior to.
He did indeed. Overruled.
Understood.
You asked the question.
Did you know why shots were fired?
Not directly, no. Believed to be involved in the incident. That's all I knew at the time.
Exactly. Thought
And
I was
would you happen to know
involved
how
in
many
the
officers
incident.
had shot at the vehicle?
Not because
Just
Brenda
one,
was
I'm
there.
aware of.
And which officer was that?
Senior Deputy Mike Rogers.
The lies they made up, chat. The lies.
And you were not aware that Leonard had taken shots towards the vehicle?
I'm still not unaware of that. Well, sorry, I'm still not aware that he did at that point.
Okay. Based on that, would you have assumed that the individual in the vehicle was armed?
It's our question to answer. If an officer shoots at a vehicle, I would presume they have a good reason to. I can't say for certain whether I would presume they're armed or not.
Yeah, it's speculation.
And what vehicle was Mr. Swoleroid driving?
A tan cavalcade SUV.
Understood. And were you aware of any 1031B calls? Actually, for the courts, would you be able to clarify what a 1031B call is?
Yeah, it's either a carjacking or robbery at gunpoint.
No, chat, I can't object, and I'm not going
When
to
you approached
because
the
you guys said
situation
it,
with
you know?
Mr. Swoleroid, were you aware of any 1031B calls?
No, it was not.
Are you aware now that there were any 1031B calls
I
during
believe
that time?
Senior Deputy Rogers testified that there was one in the previous trial.
If you were aware of that information, Mr. Svensson, would you have had a pistol or a taser in your hand?
I had a pistol in my hands, sir.
Did you not state that you were unaware of the 1031B call?
I was unaware of the 1031B call. However, I did have a pistol in my hands when I initially arrived at the call, and when I saw nothing was in his hands, I switched to a taser.
Is it standard procedure to respond to a 1031B call with a taser?
That's not what happens. I just told you that. I responded with a pistol, and I switched to a taser upon seeing his hands were empty. I responded with a pistol, just to make it clear.
Yeah, I've got that. I'm asking what's standard in the police department. If someone is
A pistol.
carjacked at gunpoint, do you respond with a taser or a gun?
We respond with a gun.
Understood. Now, you did mention after it was asked, you know, if you had.
I doubt any of them even realized there was a
any,
1031B. I'm going to be honest.
If you asked
When you're in a
anything that
shootout like
demanded
that, you're
anything
not
of
really
Leonard,
paying attention to your
you
calls.
stated you told him to stop firing.
That's an after the fact thing. They must have
I
looked
did.
that shit up.
How many times did you state that?
Just once.
Like when I was in that gunfight, you think I was
Just once.
fucking
And
paying
how far
attention
was
to the
Mr.
1031Bs?
Leonard from you?
Within 15 or 20 feet.
Is it possible that Mr. Leonard didn't hear you?
Not a big deal. I really don't care.
I suppose anything's possible.
Just was my opinion on it.
At any point in time, did you see Mr. Swoleroid's vehicle get launched from upper to lower pillbox?
No, I did not. I was unaware of that.
Were you there for any portion of the shooting prior to?
I was not.
Is it safe to assume that Mr. Leonard... Oh, scratch that. I withdraw that. Did you or Leonard arrive on scene first?
I couldn't say for certain. I think in hindsight, Leonard might have.
Do you know who the first unit on scene was?
That would be Deputy Williams or Officer Reinhardt, who were involved in 1013 at the hospital.
And could you clarify for the courts as to what a 1013 is?
Officer down.
So Williams and Reinhardt was down. And the first officer on scene was who?
I believe Deputy Rogers.
Deputy Rogers. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you stated that Deputy Rogers shot towards the vehicle?
That is correct.
And you said you weren't confident on whether or not you knew that Leonard shot towards the vehicle, correct?
I don't know.
What
either
is
way
happening
at
right
this
now?
point, if he shot at the vehicle.
Did you take a look at Mr. Leonard's police report?
I haven't seen it. I wasn't involved in the arrest directly.
Your Honor, would I be able to read the police report in its entirety?
Yes, you may read the police report in its entirety. It is part of this.
All right. So this is case number 1093, written by Kurt Leonard. States, I, Kurt Leonard, 358, was in my cruiser at MRPD getting ready to start my shift when I heard automatic gunfire coming from the area of Pillbox Medical. Turned on my radio and heard callouts that someone was shooting a Class 2 weapon at Pillbox and officers were
Outlawing your lawyer.
1078.
Shell's good,
1013
man.
came
Shell's
over
good,
dispatch.
dude.
I drove from MRPD to Strawberry towards Lower Pillbox. As I drove past there were several people in the area, including cops and civilians. Brenda Pancake was cowering near the benches to the south of Lower Pillbox entrance. Deputy Rogers was in the street with a gun drawn towards red sedan with one individual down. I drove over to the red sedan, parked my vehicle to the north of it, and gave cover towards the south. I witnessed a brownish
He's a newer
cavalcade
lawyer,
fall
chat.
from
Cut him
upper
some
Pillbox
slack.
as if it jumped from the top of the stairs. It landed almost directly where Brenda Pancake was sitting and started driving towards my direction.
No, Salad. I know,
Rogers
I
made a
know, I
call
know.
out that the cavalcade was involved in open fire on it.
I mean,
I
it's
opened fire
factual
as well.
information, right?
The
He's
cavalcade drove past me as I
out-lawyering
continued to
him,
drive
isn't he?
to fire upon it with my service pistol. The tire was shot out,
all
and the
good.
driver ejected and ran across all lanes of travel from east to west on Los Santos Freeway. I continued to shoot along with Rogers as the driver was suspected of the previous incident. Owens Fenton drove north on Los Santos Freeway towards the position of where the individual, later identified as Curtis Swoleroid, was fleeing and exited his vehicle and gave pursuit on foot. I ran up the freeway from my position to give chase. Class 2 weapons being present were called out over the radio, so I continued pursuing, as I should, with officers down and immediate threat of automatic rifles. I took a couple more shots as I was chasing. As I approached closer, the suspect was on the shoulder of the freeway in the grassy area on the west side of the highway.
I'm more
I
concerned
took
that
another shot and heard Svensson call out to cease fire. The individual
that shit
succumbed
was
to his
written
injuries
like
and
maybe
went
I think a
down.
couple days after.
Searched the man and
the
he had a pistol
incident,
that was registered
and,
to him. GSR tested the man and the GSR
I just
test
feel
came
like a
back
lot of
negative.
videos were
We
watched.
took him into custody and transported him
Personally.
to Pillbox where he was admitted to ICU. I helped transport the other individuals involved with the shooting from Pillbox to MRPD.
I just feel like a lot of
while
VODs
at
were
MRPD, I was
watched,
getting really bad
and
headaches
that's how
and
they came up with
blacked
that
out.
that report.
And the rest is unrelated. He
That's the only
essentially
thing
went off
that's
duty.
like, oh yikes.
We'll
But
just send that there.
fuck it, dude.
Were you aware of the Class 2s being
Fuck it,
present?
dude.
I was.
Oh, my lawyer's here. I thought he was
Is that an
sleeping.
objection, sir?
That would have been an objection scope, Your Honor. The question was asked too quickly, though.
Yo, Blazer Rising.
Your Honor, I'm focusing on the shots.
Giving out
and
that
the
sub to
severity
Lucky
of the
Luca. What
situation
up?
That was mentioned prior to.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Blazer.
It's overruled.
Blaze Rising.
Is that an objection?
No, withdrawn.
Okay.
Reports dated?
So
yes.
just to clarify, in a
they
situation where there are 2 officers down, Class 2 weapons being fired, downed individuals, a situation in which an officer witnessed a vehicle launch from upper to lower pillbox, almost striking Brenda, would you deem the driver
Cooking,
of
that's
that
the
vehicle a
thing. They're
threat?
supposed to misremember because they're not perfect. That's why you don't watch VODs in order to get the information.
In that specific scenario, I would.
You're supposed to
That is not
forget
the information
information
I had
because
on
you're not
hand.
a fucking robot. What?
In regards to that not being the information you had on hand, just to clarify for the courts here, you're stating that you did not have as much information as both Rogers and Leonard.
That is correct. I was unaware the vehicle had, for lack of a better term, jumped off of Pillbox Upper.
And again,
They
just
get accused for lying in
clarification,
court?
in regards
Well,
to the carjacking at gunpoint or robbery
Pretty
at gunpoint,
sure
you weren't
they
aware
had
of
no
that
idea
either,
Brenda
correct?
was there. I'm not gonna lie.
No, I
but-
wasn't paying attention to my dispatch at that time.
Gotcha. At any
Judging
point
from
in
the
time, were
clip
there
I
any
watched.
callouts over the radio?
Senior Deputy Rogers.
So it'd be better if they
indicated
just
that the
didn't
vehicle
bring
was
it up. You know what I mean?
And to stop it, and that's what I attempted to do.
What was your understanding of the vehicle was involved?
Possibly getaway driver was my understanding.
Getaway driver for what?
The gunman at the hospital that had been involved in 1013.
The jump was pretty nice.
Understood. Really quick, would you
Nah,
happen
dude,
to
like,
know if
They need
Mr.
to use what they
Swoleroid was
can
shot
they can
while
do
he
to
was
win,
still in the
and I
vehicle?
respect it, man. I'm not even mad about it. I'm just saying.
I don't know the answer to that
I'm
question.
talking, giving my opinion. You know what I mean? It's all good, dude.
The last shot that came out of Mr. Leonard's weapon, do you know if that struck Mr. Swoleroid after you had announced to stop shooting?
I believe it did. It's hard to tell. It was
That's
2
true,
months ago.
Oreo. But when did they ask for that report from Brenda? Was it the
No
day
further
of?
questions.
All right,
I don't
would you
even
like
know.
to redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you
I
may.
do not know. I do not
Please,
know.
John.
Yo, Steve-O, what
Sure.
up?
Excuse me. Officer Svensson, is it standard operating procedure for one officer to be equipped with a non-lethal weapon and one officer to be equipped with a lethal weapon when pursuing a suspect?
If the opportunity permits, yes.
If the suspect is determined to be a non-lethal threat, is the officer equipped with a lethal weapon ever supposed to fire their firearm?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Officer Svensson, you may step down at this time, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending today. Mr. Shaw, do you have any plans of calling Officer Svensson?
Did he just smoke him? I wasn't paying attention. I was reading chat. Fuck.
As of yes, actually,
All right.
just in case.
Okay. Officer Svensson, I'd advise you to hang around if you are called.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, does the plaintiff have any more witnesses they'd like to call at this time?
No further witnesses, Your Honor.
Oh, thank God,
Okay.
dude. Does that mean I don't have to go up there?
The defense, do you want to call your first witness?
I like reading chat.
Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to call Kurt
Oh.
Leonard.
Okay, thank God.
All right, Mr. Leonard, would you please approach, and I'll go ahead and swear you in.
Just go up there.
just go up there. Oh, I'm whispering. Oh, fuck.
Thank you for dressing up today, sir. Please
just got
raise
out of
your
prison.
left hand. Do you swear? or affirm
He's
that
using the
testimony you're
prison
about to give
card,
is the
chat.
truth,
He
the
wants
whole
the
truth,
court
and
to
nothing
feel
but the
bad
truth
for
under
him.
penalties of perjury, so help you Coyle.
What up,
I
Peter?
do.
All right. I will remind you now, sir, that you are under oath. Mr. Shaw, you may proceed with your first line of questioning.
All right, Mr. Leonard, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. Mr. Leonard, how did you first learn of the situation at Pillbox Medical? And in your description, if you could keep it brief.
Yeah, he could point out the
and sort of
inconsistencies
just go to,
from this court case
portions
to
of,
the criminal one, if
know,
he wants to.
how you again learned of the situation and nothing more.
I was at Mission Row. Didn't have my radio turned on. Hadn't gone on duty yet. I heard gunshots. I turned on the radio. I heard, shots fired. So I proceeded to Strawberry via Atlee and arrived on scene.
And what callouts were made over the radio?
Shots fired. Officers down.
And at the time, were you aware of the 1031B call that was made over dispatch?
On my
Actually, Your Honor, can I withdraw that question?
You may withdraw that question.
Mr.
Fuck
Leonard,
is that
was
guy?
there a 1031B call at the time?
Can you
Yes.
back up?
Sorry, dude.
And what was the description of that
Tim
1031B?
back.
the cavalcade that
And,
Mr. Swoleroid was driving.
and what did you witness this cavalcade do?
I witnessed it leap off of the second story from Pillbox Medical down to Lower Pillbox Medical. It's as I was leaving Mission Row.
It'd be
headed
dope
to
if he
the
was streaming that
scene,
day, so we could.
I saw.
I would just like to
Brenda
know, just for my
Pancake,
personal,
just off of the side of the
just
road,
for my personal
right
case,
near the road on Strawberry.
just for my sanity.
She was kind of squatting, cowering, something of that nature. And when the cavalcade leaped from the second floor down to lower, it landed what I thought was directly on top of her.
Because he could be telling the truth.
And then it proceeded to drive toward me.
And after the vehicle had landed, were there any additional radio communications at the time?
Yes.
And what were those?
Rogers called out over the radio that cavalcade was involved.
And what was your understanding of it was involved during that time?
My understanding of it was involved in the shots fired, and involved in the officers being down.
Yeah, pulling green, puffing green. I know. There's not much talk about the actual like shooting.
Did you at that time believe that the individual within the cavalcade was armed?
Yes.
Upon getting Mr. Swoleroid in custody, was he armed?
Yes.
What did he have?
A
Cavalcade.
pistol.
What made you believe that the individual within the brown SUV posed a significant threat of death or serious physical injury to yourself or others?
When he fell, or when he dropped.
That's what I'm
off the
saying,
second
Oil. I feel
floor,
like it's
as
all
I said,
fabricated. I feel like they like
What I
rewatched
thought-
shit and then
I thought he.
now they're
actually
like
crushed
using this
Brenda
whole
because
thing.
It was so close.
See, like now they're using this.
And,
I feel like he didn't actually
then
see
he
that.
drove directly toward me.
That's why I wish he was on duty so I could see his VOD.
And his actions of dropping off at the
I'd be
second
curious,
floor.
just for OOC reasons. Obviously, not bringing up in RP.
Were you the first individual to fire a weapon?
No,
Who was?
Rogers.
Now, just for clarity, could you give your version of events between the cavalcade, the call out on the radio, shots fired by Rogers, and then shots fired by you? Could you give us a timeline of how that all played out?
And then the whole I was
was
driving
within
towards Rogers and them, complete
It
lie.
dropped from the
Never drove
second
towards
floor. It proceeded north towards me, my direction. Immediately, I mean, it was immediate. It was all within seconds. Immediately upon hitting the ground, Rogers said that vehicle is involved. He started taking shots at it. It drove toward me. I started taking shots. As it drove past me, I took more shots, and I shot at the tires.
That's true, Prof and Green. That's true.
And then that's when the rest of
True,
the
I guess
events
we're
occurred
proving
where he
or
bailed out.
why was there lethal force
Was
used if they were all shooting at my car to disable the
Anything-
vehicle
actually,
but not
scratch
shoot
that.
me?
Let me reference this
So then
police report.
why are you shooting at the person if you
Just a
guys were
second.
specifically shooting at the car to disable the vehicle? That's what I think
It
is the
states,
biggest
I drove
thing
over
there.
to the red sedan and parked my vehicle to the north of it and gave cover towards the south. Could you describe how your vehicle was parked in comparison, alongside where in terms of positioning it was?
Objection relevance.
Yeah, they were trying to say driving at them, Legion, though. But
Your Honor.
yeah, obviously I was
Mr.
driving
Leonard
northbound,
has stated
but I was
that,
never driving at them like in
Mr.
a
Swoleroid
attacking
launched his
manner,
vehicle
you know?
from upper to lower pillbox and then drove towards him. I'm trying to determine whether or not Mr. Swoleroid had the opportunity to either back up or make a U-turn away from any situation in which shots were fired.
I'm going to sustain this objection.
Just a second.
Yeah, I agree with you, Puffin.
Mr. Leonard,
Yes.
did Mr. Swoleroid have the opportunity to back up or make a U-turn away from danger?
Exactly,
Did he have the
Sadie. They're
opportunity
trying to make me
back
look
up
really bad,
from the situation at hand.
which is what they're supposed
Yes,
to do,
after landing his vehicle.
even if it's a
100%.
lie.
And just to clarify, you're stating he drove towards you instead.
Yes.
Would you say that your vehicle was positioned to sort of block the direction that you were in?
Yes.
No further questions.
All right. Would you like to cross?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Deputy Leonard, how are you today?
Let them talk themselves
good,
into
how
a
are you?
hole. Oh, that's what he said.
It's just another day in paradise in beautiful Los Santos.
Yeah, I'm sure he has a plan, I guess.
Mr. Leonard, when you were pursuing Mr. Swoleroid, were you aware that Officer Svensson had a non-lethal weapon drawn on the subject?
Excuse me, chat. Holy shit.
Objection, Your Honor? I believe he stated he had a lethal firearm at the time.
What objection are you giving?
Yeah, what objection are you giving?
I'll withdraw that, Your Honor.
All right, Shaw. All
Can
right,
you
buddy.
ask the question again? I didn't understand it.
Fucking Shaw.
When you began
He
pursuing the
cracks me up.
subject, Mr. Curtis Swoleroid, were you aware
He's a
that
funny
Officer
dude.
Svensson had drawn a non-lethal weapon, that he had changed from pistol to taser?
No.
When you were pursuing Mr. Swoleroid, did he ever directly face you, or was his back turned and he was fleeing from you the entire time?
Why did Murphy quit?
He was all over the place. He came. He was running in circles practically to get across the road.
I ran in a circle and
he
then
ran
hopped the
straight
median.
across the road.
Oh, now I ran straight
Let me-
across the
let me
road.
rephrase. He ran straight across
Oh,
the road. When he got to the
okay.
grassy area, he was all over the place. He was coming south. He was going north. He was going east and west.
Really? Interesting. Okay.
Understood. So did my client ever face you?
Yes.
Was he fiddling with anything in his pockets? Did he ever reach for his waistband?
Dude, I was fucking running all over the place, chat.
Give me 1 second.
Give you
Take your
1
time.
second to look at the fabricated list of
When he was
answers you have.
running around,
No,
did you ask me if he was?
Are you
fiddling
looking
with
at the script
anything?
right now? Wait, what? No.
When he ran across the freeway, there is a.
I'm
big
sorry, Chad. I'm a
pylon,
troll, dude.
Holding up the overpass. My vision.
You
was
watching that
blocked
clip
at
right now?
point.
No,
I
I'm
didn't
just
see anything between.
I am
him
pretty
running
toxic.
from the left to the
All
right
love, dude.
Of him
No
doing
big
that.
deal, man. I'm just fucking
When he
around, Chad.
ran
All right,
across,
don't
there
take
were
me
bushes
serious.
and trees. I didn't see him at the times that I got visual on him. I didn't see anything like that.
Listen, if you can't have a little fun, man.
Understood. Your Honor, at this time I would like to reference Exhibit B, which is Curtis Swoleroid's medical report from Pillbox Medical Center.
Okay, you may reference it.
In reference that there were 3 shots that entered Mr. Swoleroid's back, tore through his torso, and exited out of the front. How many shots do you remember firing at Mr. Swoleroid during the pursuit?
This is a court case for money. Yeah, this is the civil case. So this one
sorry,
was
did you ask me a
actually
question?
Wait, what?
Yes, Deputy Kurt Leonard. How many shots do you remember firing at Mr. Swoleroid during the foot
Did you
pursuit?
ask me a question?
More than one.
More than one? Alrighty.
Less than 12.
Did you?
Oh,
did
no,
you
no, no, no,
hear,
no, sir. You
Mr.
reloaded.
Swoleroid, pleading for his life.
You
stating that
reloaded,
he was
motherfucker.
unarmed?
No.
Did you hear Officer Svensson call for a ceasefire?
No. Not well with Svensson. It was right after the last shot that I took. That was when I was able to hear him to tell me to stop shooting.
Chad, is he looking down and to the right? Down and to the
Within
left.
Escalation of force, standard operating
He's
procedure.
looking. He's lying. He's looking
when
down
a
and to the
subject
left.
Is unarmed. Is a officer of the peace supposed to exercise lethal or non-lethal force against an unarmed subject?
This is the same case, the criminal case, but it's a civil case. 2 different trials, I guess. It's the one about Leonard
To
shooting
answer
Curtis.
your question,
Yes, Deputy?
What is happening right now?
if a person does not have a
Is Shaw like
weapon.
messaging him on Discord? Like, what the fuck is going on right now?
Alright, I'll just answer your question.
Thank you, Deputy.
An unarmed person, yes, the force of escalation would be 1+1, depending on what they have. So if they had nothing in their hands, then it would be.
You know what? I quit. Oh shit! Who's
no.
this guy?
To answer your question, no.
The question, as stated, if I may remind you, Deputy Leonard, was when a subject is unarmed,
Googling.
are you supposed to respond to that unarmed subject with lethal or non-lethal force
It
in
depends on the
accordance to standard
situation.
operating procedure?
Objection, Your Honor. Compound.
Well, unfortunately, Mr. Leonard has already answered that question. Would you like to rebut that objection?
No, Your Honor. I'll withdraw. I believe I had the answer I needed.
Well, if you're withdrawing, then you're withdrawing your question in whole, sir.
Would that be the just for the sake of my inexperience, Your Honor? Would that be the original question as I asked Leonard?
The last question that you just asked, where he answered very quickly.
Chat, I doubt Shaw's messaging. I'm literally just fucking around.
The question is single in nature, but it has two individual answers that is essentially yes or no. It is my belief that it is not compound, Your Honor.
I'm just a jokester.
I'm going to go ahead and sustain this objection. We'll be straight, sir.
Understood, Your Honor. Withdrawn.
Why didn't you represent yourself? Because I'm not a lawyer?
I believe I have no further questions at this time, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Shaw?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Mr. Leonard, during the situation in which you shot Mr. Swoleroid,
Neither is my lawyer. I mean,
were there bushes big
he's a
enough
lawyer.
to
Yeah, he's
conceal
bar
the pulling of the
certified in
weapon?
RP.
Yes.
And did you believe at that time that Mr. Swoleroid had a weapon?
Yes.
Now, in regards to the question referencing shooting
Be
an
nice to
unarmed
the new guy,
individual,
alright?
is it true that a police officer can use deadly force to prevent the escape of a fleeing suspect?
That was
if they
proven
pose a
wrong in
significant
the
threat of death or
fucking
serious
in the
physical
criminal
injury
case.
to
So this
you or
motherfucker better
others?
remember that.
Yes.
Did you believe that Mr. Swoleroid posed a significant threat of death or serious physical injury to
Pretty
you
sure
or
they
others?
proved that to be not.
No further questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Leonard. You may step down at this time, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Shaw, any more witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Are both parties prepared to give their closing, or do you need 5 to 10 minutes to prepare for that?
5
Based
to
off
10
of-
minutes.
All right. I'll give everybody a 10-minute recess. I'll make a state announcement when I'll call this back into session. Does that work for everyone?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Court is now in recess for 10 minutes, and as stated, I will make a state announcement when it's time to reconvene here in the courtroom for closings.
Ladies and gentlemen of the court, Your Honor, throughout these proceedings, we have heard the narrative of a deputy that decided to swap to a non-lethal method of subject compliance in Officer Vincent's proper use of a taser when presented with a non-lethal subject in a situation. And we have heard the narrative of a deputy that drew upon a fleeing subject that posed no immediate threat, and despite orders of ceasefire from his fellow deputy, continued to fire upon my client in an unreasonable display of lethal force. As Mr. Swoleroid's body took multiple gunshots in the back that tore through his torso and exited out of his chest, he fell unconscious, bleeding from multiple gunshot wounds, his life placed imminently in danger, actions that the court of law have found Deputy Leonard criminally culpable of, and testimony from both officers concluded that
Shooting
when a
Nino
subject is
again.
not displaying any method of force themselves, that non-lethal force is the correct response and according to their standard operating procedures. We cannot put tangible value on human life, but through the pursuit of liability for civil wrongs that my client has faced and the breach of his Fourth Amendment rights during the shooting that occurred on June 15th, we can seek to broadcast a reminder that operating procedures that dictate the proper execution authority of a law enforcement officer exist for a reason, and that governance through policy and training must be preserved. Since learning the details of this case, I am only thankful that this incident occurred outside Pillbox Medical itself, where Mr. Swoleroid received immediate medical attention for his wounds, and as such, I am capable of representing Mr. Swoleroid himself rather than representing his estate and seeking additional damages for his funeral costs. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Shaw, your closing, please.
Yes, Your Honor. So, Your Honor, I'd like to again thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here. But let's go over the actual facts of this case. Curtis Swoleroid took it upon himself to willfully drive towards a situation in which shots were being fired from automatic weapons. Curtis Swoleroid almost took the life of an innocent civilian by launching his vehicle off of upper pillbox to lower pillbox, showing absolutely no regard for both his life and the life of others. Curtis Swoleroid then began driving directly towards the officers who had already been shot at. These same officers had knowledge of the vehicle that was being driven by Curtis Swoleroid as having been robbed at gunpoint just seconds before seeing it. Curtis Swoleroid also had a firearm on his person. And rather than turning around or backing up, he continued straight towards the officers. And at this point, Curtis Swoleroid, despite hearing the police department's lawful orders to stop, never actually stopped. And based on the clear negligent behavior shown by Curtis, this situation wouldn't have happened if he didn't throw himself into a situation he shouldn't have been in. And within Mr. Swoleroid's medical report, it states that the patient reported having been caught in the crossfire between two groups of individuals. And let's clarify for the courts. He wasn't caught in the crossfire. He intentionally put himself there. Curtis Swoleroid is clearly the party at fault in this situation. And given we're in a state that takes into account comparative fault, any negligence on Mr. Swoleroid's behalf should be reduced in any damages, if any, against Mr. Swoleroid. Furthermore, the Supreme Court has held that punitive damages must therefore bear a reasonable relationship.
Yeah, chat, we know we weren't anywhere near the cops.
Plaintiff.
He's just
If the
trying to
plaintiff
make us
hasn't
look
seeked
bad.
any compensatory damages, which they haven't in this case, they should not be entitled to any punitive damages. Thank you.
Thank you,
He's
Mr.
using
Shaw.
what he has, you know what I mean?
I will now place this court in recess.
Yeah, it wasn't crossfire. Yeah, I know.
I don't know how long it's going to take me to deliberate, but as soon as I get back, I will make another
It could
statement
possibly
court is
our
now in
fault.
recess.
Well, the lawyer's fault for not like bringing me up there.
Please act accordingly while we do this. And if you must speak, please step outside the double doors, as voices seem to carry.
He messaged me.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I will go ahead and call this court back into session at this time. The plaintiff was seeking a reward in the amount of $100,000. So I'm going to break everything down to you as it was explained and brought out here in the court case today. What we have a police report that was brought into evidence with
I feel like it's ending
also
badly,
the
chat.
testimony of Officer Svensson, the testimony of Deputy Leonard. I do feel that Deputy Leonard was involved in this situation and should be held liable and responsible for the actions that led to Mr. Swoleroid's injuries. So, at this time, Mr. Swoleroid, I will be awarding you, sir, the sum of $80,000. Not the sum of $100,000. Now, being that Deputy Leonard is an employee of the state of Los Santos, that money will come from the state funds, not directly from Deputy Leonard.
Pog.
Mr. Leonard, you are still employed by the state, yes?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And he was employed at the time as well by the state when these actions happened. So even if Deputy Leonard was no longer an employee of the state would still recoup the cost.
Buddha
to
can pay back
Mr.
Speedy
Swoleroid.
now. Are you out of your
Are there any
mind,
questions
bro?
Before I go ahead
That's
and
my
close
money,
out this
bitch.
court case?
The fuck?
No, Your Honor.
All right.
The
This case
fuck you
is now
talking about?
closed. If you have any questions,
Yo,
after the
Smory,
fact,
thank you for the
you may come and
100
speak to
biddies.
me.
I appreciate
Mr.
you.
Swoleroid, you will receive your compensation over in the other city. I hope you do understand that.
I understand, Your Honor.
All right, so we make sure that the money does go to you. Also, going forward, I hope that we can put this behind us within this city and we can work to improve and enhance on the differences that have happened with this court case. This
Yeah,
court
sure, Honor.
is
Oh,
now
sorry.
closed and dismissed. Thank you
Thank you, Your
for
Honor.
appearing here today.
Congratulations, Curtis.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah, congrats.
Congratulations,
appreciate it.
Curtis.
Hey, can I have some?
And congratulations,
no.
Splainer.
Not even like
Yeah,
a dollar.
me
I need a
alone.
sandwich.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
No.
Good
no.
job, Lawrence. Appreciate your help.
Good job.
Thank you.
That was a good case.
I'm still in a tremendous respect of your experience, and I feel like
I'm honestly surprised we won. I'm not gonna lie, but
Me
I
too.
kind of am too. I think you got lucky by how stacked it was, you know.
I feel like the criminal case had a lot to do with this.
Yeah.
I just-
I
I
if you
think
found
my
innocent of the
lawyer could have
criminal,
like painted a better picture, if you know what I mean.
I think he could have been a lawyer.
could have insinuated.
Could have been a lawyer. Oh my God! Don't fucking be mean to him.
All right, now I gotta shoot him. Finish the
Svensson,
job
are
so
you
we can
going
make
on
money.
duty?
What?
By the way.
What do you mean? I gotta finish this motherfucker off. Leonard told me to.
Oh, Leonard told you to. Be
Nah,
right
I'm
back. Let me
joking,
go
I'm
get my
joking.
Uzi.
You're Uzi, all right.
Oh my
Just-
god,
Just kidding.
my
I don't have
version.
one.
Mia? Where's Mia at? Mia version.
Me immersion.